Hey subscribers, welcome back to the Wayward Gourmands. This is Keith. We're heading into soup season. It's getting chilly out. You want to sit on the couch with a nice hot bowl of soup under a blanket, watching a little TV, maybe by the fire. Well, we're starting off with some shrimp bisque. I have these wonderful shrimp from the North Carolina coast, care of our friends over at Cheap Shrimp NC. I'm going to put their Instagram in the description below, so if you live in the area, you can get a hold of them and see how you can get a hold of these. I have my shrimp stock that I made on my own. If you watched our scampi video, you noticed that I saved the heads and the shells, and I make my own on the stove. You can pick up the seafood stock or whatever at the supermarket. It's entirely up to you if you don't want to go through that extra effort. I have the rest of my ingredients. I'm going to start getting this together. I'm going to get the flour and butter in the pot to make a roux, and I'm going to make the base, and then we're going to move on. You're going to see more shells in action because you need more shell action in this. So whatever you do, make sure if you pick up the shrimp, you at least get shell on. You can get head on and shell on if possible. It just adds that extra oomph to the stock, but please get the shells because it just adds the extra flavor. We'll be back in a minute. I'm going to start cooking the roux.
All right, to get the roux going, you got to get the butter and the flour in the pan. What's going to happen is you're going to want to melt your butter down, dump your flour in, whisk it around really quick because you want to coat everything. You don't want any dry spots. And you're going to cook that for about 4 or 5 minutes. Now, the next step is up to you. I usually get a whisk once it's done and break it up in little bits. It's just easier. After that, you're going to add about a quart of the stock just to make sure we get that roux incorporated. Whisk that around really good. Once you feel all the lumps are gone, or most of the lumps are gone, you can add the rest of your stock. Boop. At this point, you're going to want to season it. You want to hit a little salt and pepper. Always want to add that extra flavor in there in layers on every layer of the soup, so this way you know it's all fully seasoned well. After you get it seasoned up, we're going to whisk it in, and we're going to let it simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then we're going to set it aside and move on to the next step. On the next step, we have a recurring theme, another hunk of butter, and we're going to use that to saute our onions. You don't have to saute them that long because you're going to be keeping them in there for a while, because after we saute the onions for about 2 minutes, once they start to become translucent, we're going to add our shells. Boop. You're going to stir them for about 5 minutes until, the shells are going to start turning pink and everything like that. And then you would be watching me add the tomato paste, paprika, and garlic if I remembered to hit record for this part. But I didn't, so stir until brown, use your imagination, and there it is. Nice brown color, bit of a mahogany going on. Once you get to that part, we're going to move on to the next stage of this, which is going to include our brandy and some fire. So at this point, we're going to add our brandy in. And now you can get all fancy and tilt the pan and light it with the fire for a show. I just like using the clicker. It's just easier to light it. You can control it. And we're going to let that alcohol burn off for a minute or two. And then we're going to give it a quick stir. And once that's done, we're going to be ready to move to our next stage. We're going to move this pan off. And we're going to bring back our original pan that has the base in it. And boop. At this point, we're going to bring it back up to a simmer, and then we're going to add all of the shells and onions and garlic and paprika and all that brandy goodness into this main pot. And we're going to let this simmer for about 45 minutes with everything in there, just so it can all marry together and become shrimpy deliciousness. Obviously, we're going to give this a really good stir. We're not just going to leave it like that. And then, like I said, we're going to, on, like a medium-low heat, we're going to let that simmer for about 45 minutes. And then we're going to have to take it off there, and we're going to have to strain all of this out.
All right, welcome back. There was a lot of steps on the stove, but I'm back here now. You saw me take the stock with the roux and make the base, and then I took the shells with the onion, the garlic, the paprika, some tomato paste, let that brown up and really layer the flavors in there, caramelize, get them to come all together. Mix those two together, let it simmer on the stove for 45 minutes. This place just smells incredible right now. There's still a couple of steps left to this, so stick with me. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to drain this through, get all those shells and everything out of there, and then I'm going to return it to the pot, and we can finish this up. I got my heavy cream on the stove warming up, and we'll wrap this thing up and give it a taste. Be back in a minute.
Whether you use a strainer like myself or if you use cheesecloth, it's going to take a little while to drain. It's a very thick soup at this point. So once it's drained, return it to the pot. You're going to bring it back up to a simmer. And at this point, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be pouring that heavy cream in there now that you had heating on the stove. Pour it in there nice and slow. You don't want to burn yourself because everything is hot at this point. Once that's poured in there, we're going to just give it another stir. And you're going to see a consistency change in the soup. It's going to become very velvety and silky, and it's going to have just a absolutely wonderful consistency. Now we're just going to take a moment and watch the change in this soup. It's just going to absolutely become a wonderful, wonderful consistency. And I can't say any more about it. So I'm just going to let you enjoy this for a moment. Okay, and on to the rest of the seasonings. We're going to add ourselves some Old Bay, a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, a little bit of hot sauce. Give that a good stir. And then we're going to be moving on to the soup's namesake, the shrimp. You're just going to heat those up in a skillet with some olive oil, salt, and pepper. You just want to give them a little color. You don't want to cook them all the way through. They'll finish cooking gently in the soup. It'll give the shrimp a more tender texture. Just when you're pouring it in the soup, go easy. Don't do it like me, or you just want to wind up cleaning more of the stove than you ever anticipated when you were making this meal. And now we're in the home stretch. We're going to give this a quick stir, just to get the heat around the shrimp to, like I said, gently cook them the rest of the way. And then we're going to add in our dried parsley. We're going to give that a stir, and then you can pull it off the stove because it's pretty much ready. There's one last step before it gets into the bowl.
Okay, so we got the whole thing together. There's one last step to do, and that's to just stir in the sherry just before you serve. And you can it just pops when you put that sherry in there. I have to give this a taste. Look at that nice piece of shrimp in there. It's got a great nose. It's got a really nice flavor. Really silky soup. Well, I might have a full bowl of this right now, but I really encourage you to give this a shot because it's absolutely delicious. I'm going to eat some soup. So thank you very much for coming back, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, the recipe and the directions are all going to be in the description below, along with the way you can get a hold of Cheap Shrimp NC, because I'll tell you, these shrimp are fantastic from the North Carolina coast. Hopefully you'll be checking back in. If you like this video, hit like and subscribe so you can get alerts for any upcoming videos. It's soup season, like I said, and I'm going to probably be doing a whole bunch of soup. So thanks for coming. See you next time on The Wayward Gourmands.